Farida, you touch on California's sanctuary state law, and California is considered a place that not only welcomes immigrants, but also offers protection no matter their legal status. When recently was this not the case?
Well, this is why I focus my story on Proposition 187, which was approved overwhelmingly by voters in the state in 1994, and then was later struck down by the courts. But at that time, the state was going through this really, intense economic recession. It lost hundreds of thousands of jobs, and at the same time, there was this really rapid increase in the Latino population in the decades that preceded the 1990s. And so it became a really tense time for the state, in which a lot of people felt that immigrants were in part to blame for the economic woes of the state. And so that's one period of the state history that became really pivotal, and that people point to as a time when it really started changing the state's perception of immigrants and also the power of Latino voters in the state. And so since the 1990s, we've moved more towards a more liberal and welcoming stance for immigrants.
And you also report about the impact of Prop 187 on Morgan Hill, a suburb of San Jose. Can you tell us a bit more about that community and what happened there during the controversy over Prop 187?
Yeah, so this is a controversy that was felt all over the state, but I focused on this little suburb near San Jose because it really showed some of the tensions that people were feeling at the time of Proposition 187. So a lot of Latinos there, regardless of age, I spoke with people who were 10 years old at the time, 14 years old, in their 40s, and they really felt that this proposition was not only targeting immigrants who were illegally in the country without legal status, but that it was also targeting Latinos as a whole, because what it required government officials, local law enforcement, education officials at schools was to check for the immigration status of people in order to give them access to publicly funded services, including education. And so the feeling was really that because of the way you looked, you could be racially profiled. And so it kind of unified people in a way that it hadn't before in the state, Latinos. That was one of the reasons I focused my story there. But the other reason was you could see how that time and their opposition to Prop 187 changed Latinos in that community. It really made them more, conscious of the importance of voting and of having your voice heard. And also for some people, it even changed their careers and what they do today.
And speaking about that, with the majority of California voters voting for 187, why is it that Prop 187 and the subsequent backlash is actually credited for helping to shift California's stance when it comes to illegal immigration?
Well, one reason people focus on a lot is the impact on Latino voters. At the time, there were, a lot of people who were eligible to become citizens that had not taken that step. And so right after Prop 187 was approved by voters, and we're talking about, 50 out of 58 counties in the state that approved Proposition 187. So after that election, a lot of people realized that they needed to do more to register voters and help people naturalize if they hadn't done so. And so it's credited with increasing the number of Latino voters in the state. And then it was also a catalyst for a generation of Latino elected officials. We're talking about, people like Senator Kevin De Leon, who say that time was really important for them to decide to become, politicians and be a part in politics. And like them, there's countless people in the state that went through that, realization that they wanted to be a bigger part of the decisions in California. That's one big part of the story. The other part is that the state changed in non-Latino voters as well. There were a lot of white conservative voters who left the state. Other people moved to cities, which bigger cities like in the Los Angeles and the Bay Area, and those areas tend to be more liberal, and so that changed the state as a whole as well, to the point where, you know, there's surveys that show that 7 in 10 Californians all over the state believe that immigrants are a benefit and not a burden, and that was not the case in the 90s.
Very interesting. Farida, Jhabvala, Romero, thank you so much.
Thank you.